Joy is a matter of perspective, and it hides behind our expectations or our attachments to dreams that do not fit our current reality. So I've got a few steps for you to find joy. The first one is you can find or feel joy even when you're suffering. Buddha says that life is suffering, and once you can accept that, joy is much easier to find. Stop trying to avoid pain and learn to embrace it. The push in our culture to avoid all discomfort is a precursor to anxiety, depression, sadness, all sorts of negative feelings. So learn to embrace the pain. It is crucial. Once you accept this, joy is easily found. The second point, let go of attachments. When I say attachments, I mean the things that we dream of. We often struggle to adapt our expectations to the reality of what is over what it is we want. Learning to let go of these attachments to dreams is crucial to our happiness. The third point, practice gratitude. I'm not talking about platitudes of like, I'm grateful for the sun, I'm grateful. I'm talking about deep and thoughtful, creative beliefs of what you're honestly grateful for in the moment you are in. When you're struggling with pain, what can you honestly say? As you're lying in your hospital bed, crippled from an injury, what can you honestly say you're grateful for? Dig deep, find that. That is gratitude. Number 4, embrace the challenges you have, reframe them so that they're not a trial, they're an adventure. Life's greatest adventures are never easy. They're hard. So if you embrace that trial and reframe it as that moment of adventure that you are on, what will be the outcome? I often would say when I was tree planting as a kid up in the mountains in Canada, when things got really bad and I would be working in horrible weather and it's raining on me and I'm cold and I'm wet and I'm falling and I'm covered in mud and I'm hardly making any money because I got paid by every tree I plant, I would say, man, this is going to make a good story. Because that change would reframe in my mind, I'm on an adventure, instead of feeling defeated and overwhelmed by what was around me. Probably one of the most significant ways that I learned that pain and suffering bring joy was in a race that I used to do called Race the Rockies up in Canada. It was about an hour west of Banff in British Columbia in a little town called Golden. And I ran this race a couple times. It's a 50-miler that you navigate through the wilderness and you do things like mountain biking, whitewater kayaking, rappelling, cliff rock climbing, stuff like that as you navigate through this thing. There's no trail. You've got to find coordinates and get there on your own, and it's a grueling race. And I remember doing it the first time with my older brother, and as we were going through, I remember we came down one circuit of the race and we were mountain biking, and I'm not as good a biker as my brother, and I was struggling to keep up. And we got to a checkpoint and I was utterly done. My body was kind of shaking. I had no ability to move forward. I didn't feel like. And there, as we came up, was my brother's wife, and she had bottles of Gatorade for us. And I chugged that Gatorade and had a moment to breathe and felt reinvigorated. And then my brother and everybody kind of helped me along, and I got moving again, and I was able to keep going and finish. And I got to a point where we were in a river, and we had to carry our kayaks about a mile to get to the river, and they were heavy kayaks. And my brother was struggling, and I was okay now. My body had kind of moved through that space where I thought I was shutting down. And I didn't know this, but I found out later from my brother. He's like, I couldn't carry my kayak, but I got mine down to the river, and then I came back and I helped my brother and got his down. And I paddled through this section, and it was great. It was easy. And I just thought to myself, wow, this is so fun. I was just kind of in that moment. I was feeling good now. This was a space I was good. My upper body's strong. And I was flying. It was great. And then we got to the last segment of the race, and it was this climb up this, it was almost vertical mountain, part of the mountain. And they had a rope because it was so steep, and my legs were cramping. we were, close to 50 miles into this race, and I was cramping up. I hadn't had enough electrolytes. There was a few things that I didn't know about the race. It was my first time in it. Every single step I took, I just had to think, one step more, and it was overwhelming. The cramping in my legs, and I didn't want to stop. I wanted to finish. In fact, I couldn't stop. I'm on the side of a mountain. I had to get up. No one was going to carry me. I had to do it. And I remember I would take one step, and then I would pause and take a breath and say, one more step. And I couldn't think to the top of the mountain. I couldn't even look. I just put my head down, and I took one step at a time until I got to the top. And when I got to the top, there were some racers there that had done this incredible race called the Eco Challenge. And one of them gave me some electrolytes in the form of tablets with a drink. And it really helped me. And another guy had an apple. I'll never forget those two things. This is such a funny thing to get emotional about. But in that moment of crisis for me, in this little race that means nothing to anybody, these little things became a catalyst that allowed me to keep moving. And from that point, I had to bike down the mountain to the finish line. And I biked down, and my legs were cramping so bad. Fortunately, I was on the top of a mountain biking down. I had to sit on my seat with my legs out straight because they were cramping so badly. And trying to pedal to get across the finish line was something that just astonished me. And I had been training for this race, and my brother had said, if you can finish a half marathon and just run around the day like nothing has happened, then you're in enough shape that you can get through this race. And so I had trained for one, and my younger brother than me, he had also been training, and he was, trying to get himself fit as well, and I was a little bit ahead of him on that scale. And I'll never forget when he crossed the finish line of that half marathon, he was emotional. He and his wife finished together, and they were emotional about it. It was a huge accomplishment for them, as it should be, right? They had brought themselves from really not great conditioning to be able to run a half marathon. But I didn't feel what they felt. I remember watching them and seeing that kind of exuberant joy of accomplishing something they didn't believe that they could have done, and wishing that I felt that way. And when I crossed the finish line from this race, I was overcome with emotion, kind of like I was when I was talking about it just now, because I couldn't believe the vastness of space that I had crossed that day to get to where I was on this finish line, and how I had utterly beat my body down to get to this point in the race and finish. It was just an exhilarating feeling. And then as I reflected on it, as I reflected on the pain that I had gone through to get to this point, the agony, literal agony, the cramping, the exhaustion, the feelings of defeat, and the support that I had had from racers I didn't know, my brother, my friends, his wife, all of these things, it really hit me that this is a very simple and good analogy for life. Life is full of struggle, full of pain, full of difficulties and trials. But what a journey, right? What an excitement. And the high that I got in sensing that and feeling that and accomplishing that carried me for at least a month. I remember just being excited about it. And I still get excited about it, even talking about it today. But these are things that when we reframe in our mind, we let go of what we dream and we face what is, and we take on the challenge, they can change the trials that we're in, and we can be joyful even as we struggle. That is how we find joy. Hope you like that. If you do, I got another video coming up, how to be a stronger person mentally and emotionally. I'm James Burnham. Thanks for joining me.